Hi, everyone, and welcome to How Have We Never Seen This Before? This is a podcast where two best friends discuss iconic movies that, well, neither of us have ever seen before. I'm Isabel.
And I'm Lauren.
And this is How Have We Never Seen This Before? Hope you enjoy. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of How Have We Never Seen This Before? Before we begin, I just wanted to give a huge shout out to Michael Beaumont over at Monitor Comics. He is now doing our podcast art and it looks amazing, so thank you so much, Mike. And I also wanted to give a shout out to the winner of our first Guess the Movie contest. The winner this week is Michaela D. Elsie. It's really special because we've known her for almost 12 years now, so we'll talk more about the game later, but let's get into the podcast. This week, we watched The Godfather, and before we begin talking about it, Lauren has some very exciting points that she has to make that I know nothing about, so take it away.
Yes, so fun fact about Isabel. Her favorite movie is National Treasure, starring the iconic Nicolas Cage. And so you may be asking, where does this fall into what we're talking about? Well, the movie that we're discussing today is The Godfather, and Nicolas Cage is actually related to Francis Ford Coppola, who is the director of The Godfather, and he actually changed his name so he wouldn't have his uncle's fame.
I didn't know that at all.
Yes, I thought you would appreciate that fun fact.
Before we even started the movie, or I started the movie, we watched it separately. I was like, why is this movie so long? It's 3 hours.
Yeah, it was really interesting, and it definitely didn't feel like 3 hours, but there were some points where I was kind of losing my attention span.
To be honest, I put it at 2 times speed.
That's cheating! No wonder you didn't understand the Italian parts.
No, I had it when they were in Italy. I was at 2 times speed, but why would I understand that anyway?
I can't believe you cheated.
I'm so sorry. I had to cut the grass.
I had to sit through 3 hours of this movie just so you could watch it in an hour and a half.
No. Not the entire time. I watched it in probably 2 hours and 30 minutes.
Okay, that's understandable.
It was only like certain parts.
Okay.
So, anyway. Okay, also, I knew absolutely nothing about this movie. I had no idea what would happen. It wasn't like Rocky where I thought, or I knew that there was going to be fighting and Philly. In this one, I knew absolutely nothing.
Yeah, I didn't really know anything about this either, and to be honest, I was putting it off because I didn't want to see Marlon Brando old. I grew up watching him in A Streetcar Named Desire and On the Waterfront, and he's just so dreamy in those, and I was not looking forward to seeing him with his big cheeks and all those wrinkles, and so that's why I had been putting it off for so long.
Don't bash big cheeks. I have chubby cheeks.
You're right, I'm sorry. Sorry to the big cheek community.
Okay, so the film starts and we're at Don Corleone's daughter's wedding, and they are in an office, and this man, he doesn't come up any later, and they didn't really give him a name, not that I could tell, and he was talking about how he really needs the Godfather's help because his daughter was attacked by these men because she wouldn't sleep with one of them, and they were only in jail for a day.
Mm-hmm.
And when I heard that, I was like, things aren't very much different today.
Absolutely nothing has changed.
I was thinking about that whole Stanford, the swimming thing. That's exactly where my mind went, and I was like, wow, this should be something that we're not dealing with anymore, but it's not.
What really put me off about that is not only was she attacked, but the main reason why this man was so upset is because his daughter is apparently no longer beautiful. That was his main worry.
They say that later, too. Towards the end, there's another girl, and he's like, or her father says to the Godfather, she's no longer beautiful and innocent, like he's ruined her. So many problems with that. But it only happens twice, I think. So
Just like the way they treat women as the story progresses just keeps getting worse.
really, like, the woman that I thought would be in it the most, which is Connie, his daughter, wasn't in it at all. She maybe had 5 minutes of screen time. So after that, after he explains to the Godfather, Don Corleone, that his daughter was attacked and he needs his help, I was like, oh, that's where that voice is from. I didn't know that the weird voice or the weird accent that Marlon Brando has in this movie is from this movie, because people make fun of it all the time.
Wait, that's actually pretty funny because when he was saying like you come to me on the day of my daughter's wedding, I was like, I've seen this before somewhere. And that's because have you ever watched Rugrats Go to
No, but
Paris?
I wrote, have you ever seen Zootopia?
What's wrong
Because
with
they
us?
mimic the Godfather in Zootopia, and they do this scene, and they're little mice or possums, and the rabbit saves his daughter, and it's the Godfather situation. But continue.
Yeah, that it's the same situation in the opening scene of Rugrats Go to Paris. They're creating this like little fake scene. Yeah,
Why do they
that's
put
so
that in
funny that we
kids'
both thought
movies?
that.
I guess for the parents.
I don't know. Yeah, maybe it's a reference for the parents to understand.
So then they keep talking about this, and the Godfather is talking to this man. He's like, you weren't my friend. You never invited me over to your house for coffee. Like, you should have been my friend and I would help you. So he's like, do you want to be my friend? And then he kisses his hand. And I was thinking very much like the Pope and how you have to like kiss the ring of the Pope. That's all I know about
Mhm.
Catholicism.
I was thinking about the coronavirus at that moment.
All right, and then we're at the actual wedding, and I was like, "Oh my god, it's Adrian! It's Connie, but it's Adrian."
Yeah.
It's the same actor, and I think that's crazy that the first two movies we watch has the exact same actress,
I know, I love
and
that.
that's all she's really known for too.
The
These two movies.
yeah. The wedding looked so
That
fun
yeah, that
though.
looked like an amazing wedding. There were so many people, and they were all just so happy.
What really annoyed me though was that all of the guys at the wedding were conducting business throughout the whole entire thing except until the very end.
I don't understand why in every movie that's like this, they conduct all their business at really important life events. And I guess like cuz there's a lot of people there and it might be a little less suspicious, but then you're also missing out on your
Hmm.
daughter's wedding day. So
I would be so pissed off if everyone, all the boys in my family were off doing business on my wedding day. Like, the Cotton Eye Joe is playing, come line dance.
And while they're doing all this business, there are FBI, or I'm pretty sure it's FBI, and they're writing down the license plate of all the cars that are outside of the house, which I thought was pretty illegal. And then
We get introduced to Polly. Another Polly.
that down, but I couldn't remember who was Polly the rest of the movie because there were just so many names and so many people.
No, Polly is annoying.
Which
He
one's
does something
Polly?
awful. Polly.
Because I tried to get the names down, but there were so many names I couldn't remember.
Okay, well, they kill Polly for betraying them.
All right. So, oh, okay. Also at the wedding, this man named Johnny comes, and all the girls are screaming. They're fangirling really hard. And he is the godson of the Godfather. And I was just like, does everybody want their child to be the godchild of Don Corleone just so he'll do things for them?
Yeah, and I think at the end you can kind of see the importance of being, like, quote unquote, the
Mm-hmm.
godfather and the power that
Yeah,
comes with it.
definitely. They also tell the
Yeah.
story about the band leader and that the Godfather made him an offer he couldn't refuse, that Johnny could be free of this recording contract so he could go do better things. And originally he offered him $10,000, and then he put a gun to his head and he said, fine, $1,000. So I said, this must be like, is this how every interaction goes? And as we see, yes, it is.
Yep, or worse. Another important point to note about the wedding is that we're introduced to Michael. We kind of find out that he's the black sheep. He's in military attire, and he doesn't seem to be involved in any of the family business. And he brings Kay, his girlfriend, and she isn't Italian, so that's kind of going on at the same time as the wedding.
But then after the wedding, or from the wedding, from this interaction and them bringing up the band leader's story, Johnny needs help getting a movie part, so they go to California to convince this. I think he's the director, but they try to convince him to put Johnny in the movie, and he refuses. And before he refuses, I just gotta say that the costume directors in these last two films do a really great job with all the suits. I love them. They look so good.
I made a note of Mr. Waltz's suit too.
It looked so good. And this other guy behind him had this bejeweled cardigan.
What a king.
I thought it was great. And then he makes him this offer that Johnny should be in the movie. It's not really an offer. He's just like, put Johnny in the movie. And he asks him if he's Italian, and he says he's German Irish. And he calls him a Kraut Mike friend. Is that a slur?
Yeah, he throws a lot of slurs at him.
Okay, that's what I thought it was a slur, and I figured it's...
Well, also when he thought he was Italian, he was saying slurs to him about being Italian too. So, yeah.
No, I think I was caught up because I couldn't figure out what the other one meant, and I just assumed it was a slur. Mm-hmm. So then they go to Mr. Waltz's house, and Tom says, like, yes, I'm working for Don Corleone. And then he's a little bit nicer to him. He's like, why didn't you say that before? Like, things would have been a little bit different.
Yeah.
And he describes why he can't give Johnny the job, and it's because Johnny made the director feel humiliated because the woman that they were working with wanted to be with Johnny instead of with the director.
God forbid a woman uses her own free will.
And this woman was probably in her early 20s, and this man is in his late 60s or early 70s.
Wait, I thought it was because he trained her to be a star and she wanted to, like, settle down and have a family.
No, well, at least maybe, but at least what I understood was that he said she was the finest piece of that he ever had.
Yeah, I thought he meant that for the industry.
That is not, I don't think that's what he meant.
Okay. Well, we're also introduced to the horse, the $600,000 horse. And
that poor horse.
I said to myself, nothing better happened to this horse, because why would they introduce the horse if they weren't going to do something awful to it?
Right after they show the horse, the next scene is them slowly zooming in on a bed, and I couldn't tell if Mr. Waltz was dead or if he was just stabbed because he was moving, and then you see him pull up the bed sheets and there's just blood everywhere, and I was like, it can't be him. He would have felt that. He would have woken up in his sleep, and then there's the horse's head in his bed.
That was so horrifying.
It was so horrifying, and it looked very real, and I was concerned they cut off a horse's head.
No, I'm sure they didn't.
You never know. It was pretty gross, pretty real.
Oh my.
I also don't know how he didn't feel.
Yeah, how could you not feel like being covered in blood?
And horses are very heavy, so I think you would have felt
or the smell too.
Yeah, that too. So after they put the horse's head into Mr. Waltz's bed, we are transported back to New York, and Johnny has the job in the film. And then they mention the 5 families of New York. So these are the 5 mob boss families. And I was just, at this point, I was a little confused. I didn't understand what the Godfather did to get his money, or how it was. I was assuming something illegal, but I wasn't sure if it was passed down or he started his own business. But later on, they say he's in the quote-unquote olive oil business. Mm-hmm. And then they mention this drug ring, and this man's trying to get support from the Godfather and get him involved for 30% of the profits so that he can have police protection and political influence, because the Godfather has all these connections and can kind of corrupt anything if he wills it. Mm-hmm. He says no, though, because drugs is a dangerous business, and a lot of his political partners might go against him for that.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting because at this point in the movie, I felt like I was rooting for the Corleone family, because I guess they turned down like selling drugs, and they only, even though they're awful people, like they murder people all the time, they murder animals. I guess I was rooting for them because I guess the Godfather kind of serves as like a moral like a moral guideline.
I said this later, but I did say that the Godfather seems like the only one who has his like head straight. He doesn't act without thinking. So I think had he not been there, like had he sent his sons, it would have ended very differently. And I don't know, maybe actually that would have been better for their family in the end. But at this point, I was like, is there a potential battle between the 5 families? And yes, there is. So then the Godfather asks Luca Brasi, who's his, kind of like a hitman, kind of a double agent. He asks him to go meet with the
Tatalia.
My grandmother's maiden name is Tartaglia, so I keep getting them confused.
Oh, that's funny.
Anyway, so he asked him to go meet with that family and say that he's kind of fed up with the Corleones and that he's looking to switch sides. And as he walked into the bar, all I could think about was the drink that he's handing him is poison. The cigarette that they're giving him there's poison in that. And then they're talking in Italian. I don't know what they're saying. I'm assuming that he thinks that they're believing whatever he's saying. And then they stab him in the hand. And then they strangle him.
I think being choked out on Christmas is a truly awful way to die. And I feel really bad for Luca.
Yeah, I felt bad, but I don't know. He seemed a little... I feel like he could have been a traitor in the end, too. Like, if he had really gone in with that family, he might have switched sides. But I don't know.
I think he was loyal throughout the whole thing.
The whole 20 minutes.
Whole 20 minutes of his appearance. But, I also, at this point, thought to myself, this is a Christmas movie.
I couldn't figure out the time, because the wedding looked like a summer wedding, and there was just, like, a lot of back and forth with the timelines. It was a little hard to follow that. But then it's obvious it's Christmas when Tom Hagen, who becomes the consigliere, he's, like, an advisor to the head of a family. I'm sure every family has one. Then the 2 other members of this rival family come up to him while he's walking down the street, and there's Christmas music playing when they're like get in the car, and it's the Christmas song like he sees you when you're sleeping, he knows when you're awake. And all I could think about was like the heads of these mob boss families have eyes all over the place, so they're like an evil Santa Claus. That's not like an eloquent way to put it, but they have eyes all over the place. They're always watching you.
I guess instead of coal you get choked out on Christmas. Moving on.
So now we're at the...
Wait, we have to clarify that this is all Paulie's fault.
Yeah, so this is all Paulie's fault because he's pretending to be sick and he's tipping people off about that.
Do you know what I was thinking during this scene?
What?
When he was pretending to cough, like from Mean Girls. I'm sick.
So now we're at an open air market. It's like a fruit market, and Don Corleone's just walking around grabbing some oranges, and these 2 men just come up and shoot him down. And Alfredo, one of his sons, does absolutely nothing. He drops the gun and does nothing. And it was just so quick. And I was just thinking, like, after all this time of being a mob boss, like, why don't you have any protection? Why don't you have someone else there with a gun? Why didn't you wear a bulletproof vest, which we see Brasi do earlier? It just seemed weird that he had no other protection when he knew all of this stuff was going on because they had these meetings with the other family.
And also, it's important, I guess, to point out that he was picking up oranges because that becomes a symbol for something in the rest of the movies. I read that somewhere.
Oh, really?
After I watched this, yes. So we have to look out for oranges when we review the next...
I also completely made that up because I couldn't remember if he was picking up apples or oranges.
Really? Yeah, they were oranges.
Oh, okay, cool. So, also I said I'm assuming he isn't dead because there are still over 2 hours left in this movie. He can't die, or the movie would be over.
Not yet, at least.
Yet. So then we cut to Michael and Kay walking out of Radio City Music Hall, and they're just walking down the street, and she sees a newspaper that's somehow already been printed that says that the Godfather is dead. And I just didn't understand how she could see that when she was on the opposite side of the sidewalk with Michael in the way, and she was just like, yeah, your dad might be dead, and you know nothing about it.
She wasn't even looking in the right direction either.
That was just a weird way to bring that about. Like, they could have just reshot it and had her actually looking at the newsstand. So then we go to the next scene, and it's Tom Hagen and say their name again?
Tatalia.
Tatalia's. And and also the drug dealer who's working with them. And they kidnapped Tom, but they didn't want to kill him. But then they tried to kill the Godfather. I didn't really understand why they did both. I could understand one or the other. It just seemed like if you've already killed him, why would you need Tom? I
think they did that so the power would shift to one of the sons. Because they were into the deal from the beginning, and he knew that for some reason. He talked about it later.
Yeah, I just didn't. I thought that was a little strange. And then they ask Hagen to fix everything, which I don't know how he could fix anything after they've just attempted to kill their leader, which was just a little strange to me. So then it looks like a Christmas tree farm, and 2 or 3 of them find out that the Godfather is actually still alive. And I was curious as to whether they were going to keep that a secret or if they were just going to tell everyone that he was still alive, because I thought that if they didn't keep it a secret, then there would be more attempts on his life. So I didn't know how they do that because there's so many of them and they say everything in an open space. So then they're back at home and all the brothers are together and the other workers of the Godfather, and a package arrives, and I was thinking maybe it's like a bomb, maybe they're just trying to get all of them at once, and it's Brazzi's vest with a fish in it. So that means he's swimming with the fishes that they killed him, pretty much.
Yeah, just kind of a weird way of saying that someone's dead.
Yeah, I don't know, I figured just send in their head. I don't know. It's like the horse's head.
I don't think that's the right way to go about it either. How about just a polite letter?
Yeah, because they're real polite.
Dear the Corleone family, we killed Luca Brazzi. Sorry. Sorry, he sleeps with the fishes, and then draw a fish.
The triangle and the little line. Yeah.
Give it a little smiley face.
So then we see, I don't know who this is. I couldn't figure out his name. It's the bigger guy. And I'm guessing this is Paulie that he's with.
That's what I thought, but I wasn't 100% sure.
Because now that you say that Paulie's the one who kind of caused this, I think it's Paulie, but I don't remember the other guy's name. But they're driving into the city, and I was like, someone's gonna die. Everyone's gonna die right now. Because they're in an open field with the Statue of Liberty in the distance, and he's just like, I need to get out and go to the bathroom. I was like, you're gonna die. Like,
yeah, I knew he was gonna die. It was just awful, though, because they were laughing and joking before this.
Yeah, I guess that's to keep him off guard, but I don't know, I even know, I was like, who was the driver? Why was he shot? And knowing it's Paulie, assuming it's Paulie, it would make a lot more sense. But it just seemed like a strange way to go about things, especially because they just leave him in the car in the middle of this field.
Also, at this point, I noticed something kind of interesting. So usually, like, throughout the whole movie, when someone's, like, shot, glass shatters. Like, whether it's, like, a car window or even towards the end, there's always glass shattering when something violent happens.
Yeah. I didn't think about that, but yeah, later on there's the rotating door that glass shatters, and
the glasses.
That is interesting that the glass always shatters when someone dies. So then Michael wouldn't tell Kay that he loved her even though she said, I love you. And then they were talking about cooking and how to make like the perfect meatballs and sauce pretty much. And I just thought it was really funny because for Mother's Day, I made my family spaghetti and meatballs. But my grandmother was disappointed with my sauce.
Oh, what kind of sauce?
I just took it from a can. Like, not a can, but like, I didn't make the sauce myself because I had an exam that day. But she was disappointed with it and kept telling me how it would be better. So I'll take the Italian cooking tips that they give in this movie.
Yeah, you should have. Also, going back to why he didn't tell her he loved her, I think at first I thought it was because he thought he would have been made fun of. But then I was also thinking about it, and he kind of sends her away to protect her, and you can tell that he pushes her away as he gets more involved with the family. Mm-hmm. And I guess maybe he's worried about getting close to her because it puts her in danger, kind of like Spider-Man.
Yeah, okay. And then, so they're at a hotel, and this is where he's really starting to push her away. Like, I think it's a hotel. It looks like they have room service or something. But then Michael goes to the hospital to see his father, and when he's there, he's like, where are all the police that we sent, and where are our men that we sent here to protect him. And he was, something's bad's gonna happen now that they're gone. People know that he's here, and they move him. And when they were moving him, they shot it from an angle where you could see part of the stairs, and I thought they were gonna roll him down the stairs. I was like,
Same.
don't go too close to the stairs. I got really nervous for him. I was like, that's gonna kill him.
The nurse was also kind of scaring me.
Yeah.
I don't know. It felt kind of
I
horror
thought she was gonna
movie-ish.
like inject him with something, and that would be the end of him too. There's a lot of ways people can die in this. So then Enzo, who's a baker and is friends with them because the Godfather had helped them out, he comes and tries to bring flowers, and Michael says, no, someone's coming, we need to go outside and protect him. So they pretend that they have guns, and they pop their collars, and they stick their hand in their coat pocket as these rival mob bosses drive up like they're going to go in and shoot him. And I was just surprised. I thought it would take more for them to leave.
I think that the reason why they left is because they didn't think it was completely cleared out. Like, if there were two people standing outside, you don't know who's inside. But I think they thought that they were outnumbered.
Okay. Yeah, I get what you mean. Then the police chief comes with... He came with someone. I thought it was the drug dealer, who I don't know the name of.
So the person that you're talking about is Salazzo, and he's known as the Turk, which is the drug guy.
Right. Okay. I remember them saying that. I remember them calling him the Turk. So at that point, also, when the police show up, the police chief punches Michael, and I didn't realize this until I looked it up after, but he breaks his jaw, and that's why it's all bruised in the next scene.
And you also find out here that he's a war hero, which kind of explains why he wasn't really involved in the family business until now. And another important part to kind of take note of here is that it was very much a turning point in the movie when Michael gets involved in the family business and decides to be there for his dad.
I wrote that down as definitely a turning point for him. So then they're back at the house. This is the point where I was just like, why is Sonny in charge? Sonny seems so reckless and just really impulsive. And like, he would do anything just because in that moment he feels like it. And I just didn't understand why he would be in charge. It should be someone like Tom or someone like Michael, who thinks at least a little bit more and is more like the Godfather, because I think that's someone with a level head should be running a mob.
Maybe he was just next in line, and that's how that worked. I don't really know how the mafia goes.
That's what I was thinking. I assumed he was the next brother in line because Michael seemed a lot younger than the rest of them. And Tom brings up that he wants to shoot the police captain. And I was like, wow, that's a terrible idea. You'll definitely get arrested for that. But Michael is kind of all for it.
It was so funny when they were thinking about what restaurant to pick, and they decided on one that was known for its good food. And I think that's so funny, and how like food plays such a big role in their lives. Like, whenever they're arguing, they always say that if they eat, they'll feel better. Or I just think that it's funny how they think food is going to solve all of their problems.
Yeah,
what I think sometimes.
At this point, they're also complaining about dishonest cops and like, how could the police chief do this? And I was like, don't you have control of all the other cops? Which was just seemed like kind of hypocritical, but that's how the mafia goes, I guess. So then they also have a gun that Michael's going to use to kill the police chief. And it was explained that the tape on the gun would keep it from getting fingerprints. And they explicitly tell him to drop the gun, which I didn't understand. Like, why would you drop the gun? Why would you? It just seemed a little strange to specifically drop it.
Yeah, maybe it's so that the police don't go digging for more evidence if there's just none in the gun. I don't know. I just thought of that now. But I also thought this scene was weird because his bruise looked so much worse than it did in the scene
that's why
before.
I was like, maybe something more. I wasn't even sure if he got slapped or punched, and then when I looked up that he had his jaw broken, that made a little bit more sense to me. And then Michael is going to this dinner, and I was a little confused because they're going over a bridge, and Michael mentions like, why are we going to Jersey? I thought we were going to a restaurant in Brooklyn. And then they whip around and head back to the restaurant.
Well, if you looked behind them, it looked like two cars were following them. So I think they were trying to kind of like lose the cars that were following them.
Yep, I remember that now.
Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
No,
I just thought of
they
that
did a
now.
lot of like shots of them weaving in and out. So that would make sense if someone was following them. They were trying to ditch them because they couldn't make that sharp turnaround like they did to return to Brooklyn. So then they're at the restaurant and they're talking in Italian again, and there are no subtitles, and I didn't know what they were saying. But I did look up that apparently this might not be true, but one comment was that you're not supposed to know what they're saying because you're supposed to be in the same position as the police captain who doesn't know Italian, which I was like, maybe, I don't know if that's it, but that's interesting.
I was just going to say that I understood it a little bit, and they were kind of talking about how what happened to the Godfather was business. Mm-hmm. And that he has, like, respect for him still. He was just basically saying that he wants peace and that he respects the Godfather, and shooting him was just all business.
Sure. Okay. And then Michael kills the police chief and the Turk, and that's that. And then they do that cool newspaper effect where they just show different newspapers headlining that the police chief was killed and he was involved with this drug ring. And I don't know, I thought that was a fun effect.
We love a good montage.
So then the Godfather comes home, and at this point I was kind of sensing that Michael might have been his favorite son because he didn't want to talk to any of the others unless Michael was there. And earlier at the wedding, he refused to take a picture for the wedding party without Michael, which I think says a lot for what happens in the end, like the position that Michael gets put in at the end and why it's him and not anybody else.
I also think to Vito, family is really important to him. Like, I wrote down a quote that he said about family. He says, "A man who never spends time with his family can never be a real man." So it kind of shows how much he values family over everything.
He emphasizes even like friends that are so close as family, and how being someone's godfather is very, very important for Italians. So at this point, Michael is now in Italy, and this is because he killed the police chief and the Turk. He needed to leave for his safety. I didn't understand that at the time. I understood it later, so I was confused and I thought he was just there to meet a girl and get married. Like he met that girl right away. But then it switches back and forth through Italy and New York, and Connie is abused by her husband, and she calls Sonny right away, and as soon as Sonny finds out, he drives over and beats him up. I thought maybe he bit his finger off because there was a point where he was grabbing this pole and he got his mouth really close to his hands. But there wasn't any blood, so I don't think he bit his finger off, but that's kind of where I thought it was going.
Yeah, I hate Carlo throughout the whole movie. He sucks.
Carlo's terrible. And then it switches back to Italy, and Michael's marrying this girl, Apollonia, who isn't that important.
What I don't understand is at the wedding, they do not look happy at all. That's what I
said. I was like, did she want to get married? Like, what is going on here? She's not smiling. Like, she's not necessarily upset, but she's not happy. And then all of a sudden we cut towards the bedroom, and then I was like, oh, I guess it's fine.
He looks a little happy there. I just thought that their wedding didn't look nearly as fun as the opening scene.
No, not at all. And that's why I thought maybe he went to Italy to marry her, because she didn't look happy.
Oh, really?
I don't know. I wasn't sure because I didn't pick up on the fact that he left for his safety until later.
Oh.
But then we're cutting back to America, and this woman in a red coat shows up, and I didn't understand who it was, but it's Kay, the girl he was seeing earlier.
I think it's interesting that the first time you see her enter the house, she's wearing a red dress, and the second time she's wearing a red coat.
Interesting. I didn't think about that. But yeah, so we see her, and then we cut to Connie's house, and she's pregnant. Don't know when that happened, but a man comes in, and at that point, I thought it was Sonny, and because they both have this curly hair, and I was like why? And then he gets very angry, and he looks like he's trying to whip her with a belt, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, Sonny, what are you doing? Like, she just got abused by her husband, and then I realized it was her husband.
And you also learn that he is cheating on her, too. Carlo's cheating on Connie.
Yeah, I got very confused, and I thought it was Sonny for the majority of that scene, and then I realized it. Because then Sonny is called, because Connie calls Sonny as soon as it happens again, and he immediately drives off, doesn't tell anybody where he's going. They try to follow him, but as soon as he gets there, well, he goes to the toll to cross into wherever Connie lives because we don't really know, and he gets shot down by 6 to 8 guys with machine guns, and I was just like, there won't be any of them left by the end of this movie, and how can they make 2 more if everybody's dead? After he dies, the Godfather is talking about it with his family, and to me he seemed like the only one to have any sense. He was just like, there's no vengeance for this, like enough people have died already, we just need to get a meeting of everyone to end this.
So the next scene is actually pretty important because you get to see the guy from the very beginning of the movie. He works at a funeral home, I guess, and he's in charge of making Sonny look good for the funeral. And the Godfather asks him to return the favor. Finally, the day has come, and you think it's going to be something violent, but in reality, he just asks that the guy makes Sonny look presentable and isn't covered in so much blood for the funeral, which I think you kind of really get to see the Godfather's heart there. And that kind of helps me root for the family even more.
Yeah, I agree. So after Sonny dies, we
Mm-hmm.
also cut back to Italy, and Michael and Apollonia are driving around, and I guess he's teaching her how to drive. That's kind of what it seemed like. And she's really eager to keep
Mm-hmm.
driving. I think they're going on vacation somewhere because they're trying to put bags into the trunk of the car. And as Michael's walking to the car, she's very anxious to leave. Like, not anxious, but she just wants to go. She's excited. And he sees one of these Italian men that he had met with when he first got to Italy, and he looks pretty suspicious. And as soon as he sees him, Michael calls out to Apollonia, like, wait, like, don't turn on the car, like, don't do anything. And as soon as she turns on the car, it's actually a car bomb, and the car explodes, and it was meant for Michael. It was meant for both of them, but more so him than her, which is really sad because anyone that anyone loves in this movie dies.
Yeah, it's really sad.
So now we're at the meeting of the 5 families of New York and New Jersey, and the Godfather says that he's gonna get out of the drug business, which I was a little confused about because I thought he had never been in it in the first place because he said no to the Turk. So that confused me a little bit, but maybe that was his original business in the first place. I was kind of confused by that, but
I don't think he had ever been involved in the drug business.
yeah, I just couldn't tell. I assume he was just saying that to appease everybody because it
Mm.
would have just been contradicting everything that happened before. So then the Godfather also says that he will not be taking any vengeance for Sonny because it won't help anybody. It'll just get more people killed, which I think is a very valid point.
Why did it take so long for these people to understand that?
Well, I think it's just because he was in the hospital and everyone else was so impulsive and trying to get vengeance all the time that that's why it didn't work.
Yeah. I guess he's continuing to serve as like a moral guide for everyone.
Yeah, the most moral of the mob bosses. And he also says that because I'm not looking for vengeance for Sonny, I want Michael to come home and not have the fear of being killed all the time. Then he swears on his grandchildren, and I was like, why does everybody swear on their children or their grandchildren? Because nobody cares who they kill. So
Yeah, those are just words.
yeah, I didn't understand why they took that as something to go by. I don't know. These people don't
Hmm.
seem to be that nice. But then,
Then they decide that they're going to sell the drugs, but they're going to control it, and they're not going to let children buy them.
oh yes, yeah.
At this point, it got really disturbing because they said that they were going to sell it to African Americans and just called them slurs, which was awful.
But I think it's something to note that the Godfather doesn't become a part of that.
Yeah, he does.
He does?
Yeah, that was the compromise. He's going to offer them protection and give, like, the police are going to get involved as long as they control who they're selling the drugs to.
Oh. We look at these movies from very different lenses.
I feel like that was important.
I think you're right, and I just missed it completely. I need to watch these movies
Oh.
twice. But that one was 3 hours.
Maybe I misunderstood.
I don't know, I think you're probably right, and I just missed it. Or I'm
Okay.
forgetting because I have a terrible memory. Anyway,
They also find out that the person that's been messing up their lives this whole time was Barzini. This is like the scene after this happens, before Mike gets back. I had no idea who Barzini was at this point.
I think it's hard to tell. I think that's why it's so confusing because you don't like we are in the position of not knowing that Barzini's done everything. And
Hmm.
I don't think I fully understand how Don Corleone figures it out at that meeting. Like what is that one thing that makes him realize that oh it's him? And we only know that it's him because he says it in the car. I don't think
Hmm.
it was clear.
I think maybe it's because he's known the five families for so long, so he knows the Tatalia family a lot, and the guy that's running that, maybe he could tell just by looking at him that he was kind of fighting between peace and starting this war because of Barzini. I don't
Yeah.
know. That part was so confusing. But I guess we've established that Barzini was kind of instigating this whole thing, telling the Tatalia family to sell drugs and to be anti Corleone.
Yeah. It's confusing on purpose. You're not supposed to know.
Hmm.
So now we cut to Michael has returned home and he sees Kay for the first time. She's walking with a bunch of children. I was maybe she's a teacher or something. But then I was very confused because he tells Kay that he's been home for over a year. And I didn't know if this peace treaty happened a year ago and this was signaling this jump in time.
That was confusing. That actually really stuck out to me too. But it hasn't been a year because Connie is still pregnant.
Yeah, which is again, I was like, how I don't understand this timeline.
And also, how does Mike expect Kay to marry him after he ghosted her and didn't reply to any of her letters, married someone else, and then came back?
Yeah, I did not understand any of what she was doing. And then she just leaves with Michael in a car, and I was like, where did the children go? She just left him behind. There's 12 children running around the streets, unsupervised.
Hmm.
So at this point, Michael is taking charge of the Corleone family because the Godfather he's much older and he's been sick and getting shot 3 times doesn't really help.
Hmm.
So he tells Kay and the rest of the family that within 5 years their operations will be legit. It won't be any undercover business, and they're doing that by moving to Nevada and buying a hotel and casino from someone that they had been working with before. Tom Hagen is also the lawyer now, and he's not the consigliere. Don Corleone becomes a consigliere because he doesn't, or Michael doesn't think that Hagen can do it because it's wartime.
Another important point to notice is that Carlo is now finally in the family business,
Hmm.
which is annoying because I hate him.
Yeah, I was confused why he hadn't been in it at all for so long. Like the only time that we had seen Carlo and Connie was when he was hitting her. So then we go to Nevada and we see that Alfredo has been in Nevada. He was sent there a long time ago to work with the Green family for protection at that point, but now he's been working with them for so long. And Johnny, the singer from the beginning of the movie, is also there. And at this meeting, Michael asks Johnny to sign a contract saying that he will appear 5 times a year at this hotel and casino and also ask his celebrity friends to do this as well because they want to support this casino. And Johnny signs it right away because of everything that Don Corleone has done for him. But Alfredo says that he has never heard about this buying the hotel and casino from Green. And he knows that he would have because he's been there for so long and they've become close that he would have told them if there was this deal on the table.
Hmm.
So the current owner Green says that no, he will not sell it because the Corleones don't have the pool anymore because the Godfather he's been ill and that he can't really force him to do anything anymore. There's no offer that can't be refused. So Alfredo also really disappoints Michael because Alfredo supports Green more than he supports his own family, which is that callback to what the Godfather had said earlier about how he really found family important and that it was family over everything.
Hmm. I also just wanted to point out that Michael's face looks a lot better now. He fixed it all up because before, throughout the whole thing, he had, or ever since he was punched by the police chief, he had a huge mark on his cheek, and then they got rid of that
I think that also
because
shows the passing of time.
yeah. Well, also someone fixed it for him. Like he
Mm-hmm.
must have gotten surgery.
But then they're back at the house in New York, and the Godfather says to Michael that in this upcoming meeting that he's going to have about the five families and about like kind of the future of what's going to happen, that the guy who sets this up is a traitor.
Hmm.
And I didn't really understand how he knew that. I mean, he's right, but I don't know how he knew that.
I think he just knows these things. It's his elderly wisdom.
Okay, sure. I'll take that.
I'm also not sure who says this, but around that point, someone says women and children can be careless, but not men. And I was like, interesting that you would say that.
Okay.
Like, the way that women are treated in this movie is just awful.
I'd like to say it's because of when it was filmed, but it's not.
Yeah.
So then I think more time passes. Like it seems like it because Don Corleone seems older.
Also, it's weird because Kay and Michael have a kid now, but Connie is still pregnant.
Yeah, I didn't get that.
Yeah, what?
I'll get to that right after this, but yeah, that really confused me. So then the Godfather is playing with Michael's kid, and this kid must be 3 or 4,
Hmm.
I think.
He's so
He's
cute.
very cute, adorable. And they're just playing in flowers, and then he just dies right in front of his grandkid.
Yeah, I kind of saw that happening.
I knew it was gonna like you could see it was gonna happen, but that's so terrible. That poor
Hmm.
kid.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, but I actually felt really bad when he died. Like, I don't know why I'm rooting for this mob boss this whole movie, but
I think it's because he has that moral compass that no one else in this film has.
hmm.
But yeah, he just dies, and then they go to his funeral. It seemed like all five of the families were there as well, because there were so
Hmm.
many people at this funeral. And yet again, at another life event, they need to talk business. And this one man, Tessio, he's also a traitor at this point. Tessio,
Hmm.
who has worked for the Corleone family, he comes up to Michael and tells him that there needs to be a meeting with Branzini.
Hmm.
But also, it's also the Tataglias, or is it just Branzini?
I think it's, well, doesn't he end up killing all of them?
Yeah, they all die in the end.
So he ends up killing them all, so I think that they're kind of faking showing respect for Vito, and um, because in the end they're just all traitors, and I think that's why Michael kills them all.
Yeah. But yeah, that's what, like, because Tessio is the person that came up to Michael to talk about it, that means that he's the traitor that
Hmm.
has been behind a lot of the deaths and the misfortune.
Yes.
But then this is where the timeline becomes even more confusing because Connie asks Michael to be her son's godfather and he needs to be at his christening, which I thought happened as soon as the baby was born. But Connie was pregnant so long ago, but now Michael and Kay have a kid who's looks like he's definitely not 1 or 2, but I don't know. Is this another baby or is this the same baby? Because there wasn't another child present except for Michael's child.
Yeah, like why wouldn't you see the kid at the christening? The first kid that they had allegedly.
Yeah, I don't know. I was also thinking that maybe when Carlos went in the second time he was hitting her, they shut the door and you don't see what happens. So I was thinking maybe she loses the baby.
Oh yeah. I didn't think of that. That's probably what happened.
But we also don't know that she had been pregnant at any other time, so it's kind of confusing if you didn't catch that, which I didn't even think about until after it happened.
Yeah, that's definitely a note I'd like to make, because they should just say, like, they could just, it would take 1 second for them to say, "Oh, Connie's pregnant again." Throw it somewhere in there.
Yeah, I think that would have made a lot more sense, and it kind of throws the timeline off if it doesn't make sense. But
Mhm.
while this christening is happening, you're also seeing, and it's ironic because Michael's saying, "Yes, I denounce Satan, I denounce all these sins," while you
Mhm.
see these men going around and killing all the other leaders of the five families. And like you said earlier, there's that glass shattering, and you see Green also gets shot as well. He gets shot through his glasses, that breaks. One of the other men is going through a revolving door and is shot through the revolving door, which is made of glass. And then there's another one in a car. So there's always that
Mhm.
glass shattering. It also happens later when Carlos dies.
So I also wanted to say, like, during this scene, you could also hear children crying, which happens so often throughout the movie. It was so disturbing hearing children crying throughout the whole thing. It, like, made me upset.
So after this killing montage on top of the christening, Michael meets with Carlos and is like, sit down with me, like, here's a drink. And I was like, the drink is poison. Carlos is gonna die. It wasn't poison. And then Michael says to him, like, you're leaving. You cannot be with Connie. You're a terrible man, which he is. And
Yeah.
he says, get in this car, we're taking you to the airport, you're leaving. And he doesn't really fight it. That, like, he does for a little bit, but he doesn't put up much of a fight for it. And as they're in the car driving to what you think is the airport, he's sitting in the front, and then there's a man in the back who comes around with a cord and strangles him. And while he's being strangled, he like kicks his foot through the windshield and the glass breaks.
Hmm.
So yeah, there's that glass breaking again. And Connie blames Michael for everything that happened, and she says that he only kept Carlos alive until it was the right time to kill him after Don Corleone had died. Which I don't think she's wrong at all. He was a terrible person. The Godfather wouldn't stand for him being killed because he is family, and I don't think he would do that. So Michael took advantage of that after he had died.
Yeah. And it's just crazy to see that he lied right to her face about it. Like, how do you mistake that?
Yeah, and as soon as Connie leaves the room, Kay asks him, like, what, like, did you do this? And he tells her, don't ask about my business. I told you don't ask about my business. And then he calms down. He's like, fine, this one time you can ask about my business. And she says, is it true? Did you kill him? And he says he didn't. Like, I mean, yeah, he could just be lying, but at the same time, like, he isn't the one who killed him because
Hmm.
someone else killed him. He just gave the order.
Okay. Well, he also kept calling her hysterical. Like, he was responsible for killing her husband, and when she's showing normal emotions and is visibly upset about it, he's calling her hysterical.
And he also, whoever grabs Connie while she's screaming, he tells that person, he's like, go take her to a doctor.
Yeah.
You just killed her husband. Like, regardless of how terrible he was, you did just have him killed. And you didn't consult her about it.
Yeah. It's not right.
Yeah. So, in the end, the only people who didn't get killed in that family is Michael, Connie, and Alfredo. And I guess Tom. Everyone else died.
Is the mom still alive, or did she die at some point?
Oh, she's still alive. She was at the
She's at
christening.
the funeral.
Oh, is that the funeral?
Oh.
Or I think she's at
Oh,
the
she was
christening.
at both of them.
Yeah, so I mean, she might still be alive. I don't know if she like silently passes because it's not violent. But maybe she's in the later movies and she didn't die. But the movie ends right after this scene where Kay asks Michael if he did it, and he says no, and she walks out. And at that point, three other men walk into the room, and they call him Don. So that means that he is now the head of the household, and the door shuts, and that's the end of the movie.
Hmm. Like, one final shift of power.
Yeah, which I thought was interesting. And I don't know how they would continue that to two other movies, but I thought like even like that would have been a good end to
Hmm.
everything.
I think the second one is a prequel, and then the third one is a sequel.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'd watch a prequel.
Yeah, so
Because
would I.
I'd love to know how the first Don Corleone got into power, because it's not clear in the movie.
Yep, I agree.
So overall, what are your thoughts?
Overall, I think that this was an important movie that I probably should have seen before, um, even though it kind of perpetuates gender roles and is not very good for women. I still think this was an important cultural film to watch.
Hmm.
Yeah. How about you?
I mean, I did like it. It was a bit long and like hard to watch. 3 hours of a film, like even now, like with the new Avengers movies, those are 3 hours long, and that's I can't really sit through that. That's a lot. But I think any older movie that we watch is gonna have those same stereotypes and gender roles, and it's gonna be hard to avoid. But I think I think I like this one more than Rocky. I think this really captured my attention, and that may be because I didn't have any preconceived notions about it, because I literally knew nothing about it. And I think also it's important to watch because there's so many references to it in so many other films, like even just the two that we talked about, which are children's films. They still it's still really important to be in that. So
Yeah, and also watching this as someone who is like who has like relatives from Italy, it's kind of like funny because you get I don't know, even though these people were in the mafia, you still kind of see like the Italian culture that you can relate to.
yeah, no, definitely. I was thinking about my grandfather when they would like list off Italian desserts and stuff.
Like when he said, "Leave the gun, take the cannoli." I thought that was funny.
Yeah, we watched two Italian heavy films in a row, and
Really, really reuniting us with our heritage.
but I enjoyed this. I'm glad I've seen this one.
Yeah, I'm glad I watched it too.
So, I mean, that's it from us on The Godfather. Let us know your thoughts on The Godfather, and let us know if you want us to watch 2 and 3. We are also going to be starting a little game on our Instagram and Facebook where we'll give hints to what movie we're watching that week, and whoever is the first person to guess what movie we're watching, we'll give you a little shout out at the beginning of the episode.
So yeah, you can follow us on Instagram at How Have We Never Podcast and on Facebook where How Have We Never Seen This Before.
Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Hey, congratulations, you've made it to the end of our podcast. Thank you so much for listening. How Have We Never Seen This Before is produced by Isabel Barone. The music is by Scott Holmes. Our social media is run by Lauren Cola, and our podcast art is now being made by Michael Beaumont over at Monitor Comics. So thank you so much for that. And we hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you next time. Bye.